At this point, Konami has been back for quite a while. Of course, Silent Hill 2 Remake, probably the biggest example of them being fully back in the AAA space. Before, they were doing some collections of Castlevania and other stuff. They have the upcoming Silent Hill F, but there's two really big ones that they haven't fully dove back into until now. One of them being Castlevania, but the main one I want to talk about is Metal Gear. We really haven't seen much from them in the post-Kojima era. It was just the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine and he brought up Metal Gear Survive, and I completely forgot that that game even existed, probably for a good reason. But then Metal Gear re-emerged with the Metal Gear Solid, what is that game called? Was it Legacy Collection? Metal Gear Solid No, Legacy Collection's the old one. That's it. Then they returned with the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, Volume 1, of course implying that there would be more in the future, hopefully. And while it seems to be in a good state now, at release clearly had a bunch of issues. Not exactly the love letter to Metal Gear Solid that people were hoping for, but after months of updates, it seems like these games are in a pretty good spot overall. But then we got the announcement of a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, and this was incredibly exciting for many people. I remember many years ago when they had that Metal Gear Solid 3 pachinko machine that they made all these amazing new cutscenes, and people were just dying on the inside that this is what Metal Gear had turned into. You got all these amazing cutscenes, and yet it's tied to pachinko. So for a lot of people, this is a dream come true. The remake, you get those pachinko graphics, if that makes sense, into an actual game. And it makes sense that they're starting with Metal Gear Solid 3 in some way. It is the first game canonically in the timeline. It's not really the game that I would recommend playing first, but we'll take what we can get at this point. So when this was announced, I was cautiously optimistic. To me, Konami has not really proven to be good stewards of their IP. It's important to remember that while now we have a really great Silent Hill 2 remake, before that, in the revitalization of Silent Hill, we also got that weird live game and also that free demo game that was also really terrible. To me, Konami's really just acting like, hey, we've got all this IP, let's farm it out to someone that we think will probably be capable, and hopefully we can make some money off it. I don't really have a problem with that, since it seems like they're not really that interested in being involved in games anymore. So why not let other people do something with these IP? So here we are. It's the release week of Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, or I guess it's just called Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. And some of the things that have been coming out, both through the reviews and other people that have played the game, got me a little concerned. The signs were there when we heard that this game was being developed in Unreal Engine 5. Unreal has just been notoriously problematic so far this generation, both for consoles and PCs. Not that there isn't examples of good UE5 games, but it seems like the batting average here is not so high. So one of my favorite channels, Digital Foundry, put out their review of Metal Gear Solid Delta, and there are, of course, a lot of performance problems. The main one being just that the game does not consistently hit 60 FPS, it dips a lot, and this would maybe be, well, I don't even want to say okay. We might be able to deal with it if it was within a VRR window for people that have higher end TVs, which that's a crutch and really shouldn't be acceptable anyway, but it's even worse than that it sometimes on its performance mode dips all the way down to 30. And there's been a lot of conversation about this frame rate inconsistency, some people being quite upset about it, myself included. I posted on Twitter saying I was pretty disappointed with it. I'm assuming the PC version is also going to suffer from stutter issues, being it's an Unreal 5 game, but some of the pushback has been, well, this is how we used to play games, what's the problem? In fact, there was this response here, and no disrespect to this guy, that said, folks need to stop acting like a game dropping below 60 FPS every now and then is a disaster. And he is right, dropping below 60 FPS every now and then isn't necessarily a disaster. I'm not going to be that strict about a game hitting a constant 60 FPS. The issue in Metal Gear Solid Delta, though, is that this is a lot worse than just a few dips here and there. In the Digital Foundry video they showed dips all the way down to 30 and often consistently laying outside of that VRR window. So even if you do have a new expensive TV, you're not going to be able to just fix these issues or make them appear not as bad. I think the issue that's been bothering me about some of this frame rate conversation is just this idea that, oh, well, we used to play this way. To me, why wouldn't we have new standards on what we expect from new AAA full price games? It has a very boomer-esque, oh, I used to walk uphill to school both ways type mentality. Yeah, sure, that may have been the case, but times have changed. And I'm not trying to say that Metal Gear Solid Delta is an unplayable game in this state. Certainly, you could play it, have a blast. Different people are going to be susceptible to frame rates at different points. I know my wife Holly, sometimes she plays games on Nintendo Switch and I look at it and I'm like, man, I could not do that at that frame rate. And God bless her for not caring. It's an easier life. It's a simple life. So I don't want to poo-poo anyone that's excited or anyone that's not bothered by the frame rate issues, but there is a point where it's a little too rough for the expectations of what you'd expect from a new release. And maybe I'm a hypocrite with this. Of course, Elden Ring notoriously launched with some pretty bad frame rate issues. I haven't played Metal Gear Solid Delta yet. I think it seems not quite as bad. But at least with Elden Ring, and I don't want to give From Software any excuses for that, at least with Elden Ring, I could play the PS4 version on PS5 and get a decent enough experience. And yes, it's maybe some From Software bias in that I was willing to put up with those things for that. But with Metal Gear Solid Delta, I've played Metal Gear Solid 3 before a few different times, and there's a decent version of the original. When it comes to spending $70 on a remake that isn't going to run very well, I don't know about that. I think the saddest part is just that I don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to get fixed either. Virtuos, the team behind this, also did Oblivion remake earlier this year, and to my understanding, that game also has a lot of issues, and they really haven't done much to fix it. And Konami doesn't seem to really care either, particularly when we're talking about Silent Hill 2. There were some updates to the PS5 version that made the PSSR that was looking gross in some of the puddles. They made that a little better. To my understanding, the PC version is still not very good, and why would they care at this point? They made the money. You'd hope, though, at some point that this would catch up with them, but it hasn't. So it puts me in a weird spot where I don't think I'm going to buy Metal Gear Solid Delta at release, even though I really want to play it. I think it looks fantastic overall, but I, at some point, got to put my money where my mouth is. Yo, it's Dustin from The Edit, and I'm editing this video. Something I did want to point out, just to be fair, is that there are, of course, plenty of games that I've bought and played that have had substandard performance over the years. Particularly, I think of games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, more recently, Final Fantasy 16. And so, yeah, that's probably a good point if I'm playing devil's advocate with myself, I guess. But it's also a little different. It feels different because of Metal Gear Solid 3 being a remake. I don't know. Maybe I've caught myself here before a commenter could, but I felt like it was worth pointing out. And it's not that I'm not going to buy it until it gets to a perfect locked 60 FPS or something like that, but the main stickler for me, and surprisingly not for Sony, is that this game's performance is actually worse on the higher end PlayStation 5 Pro than the PS5. And that's one of the most confusing aspects about Sony for me currently, not to get sidetracked, but this is not the first time that a PlayStation 5 Pro game has run worse than the standard PS5 game. And yeah, the image quality may be nicer in some aspects, but a lot of people at this point are caring more about performance. I know it's not Sony's job to optimize games for their console. They are the platform holder, but there is certification to make sure the game works and runs well. If it were me at Sony, particularly early on, maybe not so much now, but when the PS5 Pro came out and there were games running worse, that is not a good look. I just don't understand. It doesn't seem like it wouldn't be that much effort that when they're looking at certification for both PS5 and PS5 Pro, having both versions of the game, looking at it, doing a minimal amount analysis. You're Sony, you can handle it. And can you answer the question, does the PS5 base version run at least as well as the PS5 Pro version? Doesn't seem like it should be that hard of a question for Sony to answer when they're looking at these games. For a lot of PS5 Pro owners, it's like, man, they already bought a standard PS5 probably at launch. I would assume a lot of PS5 Pro owners are second-time PS5 buyers, and then they went and spent even more on the Pro, and now when a game comes out and it runs worse on your console, doesn't feel so good. So yeah, while it's not extremely common, it has happened enough times in the short amount of time overall that the PS5 Pro has come out that, to me, it's just completely unacceptable. And sure, it's not Sony's job as the platform holder to go and optimize third-party games for the platform, but there should be some degree of standard. The Pro version runs better than the base version. That's what we sold people on the Pro on. So my dream for Metal Gear Solid Delta is that we do get a patch in the next few weeks that at least pushes it up to my level of I'm comfortable with this. I think the absolute minimum is that it at least is within the PlayStation 5's VR window. And also, as I just mentioned, the PS5 Pro version is better than the PS5 version. I don't feel like that's that much to ask for. So it's disappointing, but not surprising. Konami, hopefully you can get this sorted out. It's got me a little more concerned about Silent Hill F, which so far, everything we've seen from looks insanely promising. The other reality too, to keep in mind is just that the people that actually care about this, people like me and people that are the most hardcore inner circle, are not the majority. But regardless, I still feel like it's something important. You want to set a certain standard of quality for these games, and if Konami wants their comeback with big AAA games, even if it is partnered through external development, you got to have some level of quality control. Unfortunately, it seems like they'll continue to skirt that line just enough to get the high review scores, to get the sales, but not enough to truly satisfy people like us. So let me know down below what you think about this Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. I said it wrong again. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater frame rate issues. Are you going to pick up the game either way? How do you feel about that Pro version? That's the one that's really bothering me deep down inside. Keeps me up at night. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. I'm growing this channel as much as I can, so your subscription would really help. Leave a like, leave a comment, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time.